In this video, we will talk about recursive patterns. Recursive patterns are a set of numbers that follow a certain rule, and that rule gets repeated to get the next terms of the same pattern. Recursive patterns could be very simple patterns such as 3, 5, 7, 9, and so on. Here, the rule is simple. Whenever we are describing the rule of a recursive pattern, we always tell its start number. So we would say start at 3, and we would see how is the pattern changing, or how do we get the next terms in the pattern. So these numbers can also be called terms of the pattern. So how do we get 5 from 3 is we can add 2. Similarly, how do we get 7 from 5 is that we add 2 to 5. And plus 2. We notice that this rule is same. So when the rules are same for all the set of terms in a pattern, it's called a recursive pattern. So here we start at 3 and add 2 each time. This is how we write the rule. Now once we know the rule, and if somebody asks us to complete the pattern or fill in the blanks, we just have to follow the same rule in order to fill in the blanks. So plus 2 gives us 17, plus 2 gives us 19. These patterns could be easy like this, and these patterns could be complex. Why is a pattern going to be called a complex pattern is that if there are 2 or 3, or there is a complex operation to get the next term from the previous term. Here we just had one operation, and that was adding 2 to the previous term to get the next term. If let's say the pattern is something like this, 5, 8, 14, and we are asked to fill in the 2 blanks further. So we first have to find out how do we get the next term from the previous term. So how do we get 8 from 5? Now we notice here that if we add 3 to 5, we get 8. If we add 6 to 8, we get 14. So here the rule is not same. For a recursive pattern, we need to have the same rule. So that means we have to find out a different way to find out the rule. Here we are trying to use operation of plus. We can even use minus, multiplication, or division operations. Let's try something else. Let's see, if we do 5 times 2, we get a 10. But we need an 8. So that means 5 times 2 is a 10. Then we have to subtract 2 from 10 in order to get an 8. Let's see if this times 2 minus 2 works for the next terms as well. Now we need to get the next term, that is 14 from 8. If we apply the same rule, that is times 2 and minus 2, let's see if we are able to get 14 or not. So 8 times 2 is 16, minus 2 gives us a 14. So here we get to know that the similar rule, times 2 minus 2, can be applied to the previous term to get the next term. Therefore, for this recursive pattern, the rule would be start at 5 and multiply by 2 and subtract 2 each time. So we start this pattern at 5, and the recursive rule that we follow is multiply by 2 and subtract 2 each time. We follow the same pattern here. So this is times 2 minus 2, times 2 minus 2. Here also we would do times 2 minus 2. 14 times 2 is 28, minus 2 is 26. The next term, if we want to get, is 26 times 2 is 52, minus 2 is a 50. And this is how we fill a recursive pattern with different terms using the same rule.